Something I find really funny in Star Wars is how Padme foiled or hindered Palpatine's plans without realizing it. First, with forcing his hand in the lead-up to the invasion of Naboo, then again when she led her forces to capture Nute Gunray during the Battle of Naboo, and even a few years later during her first year as a senator of Naboo when she saved the planet Bromlark. It reminds me of that meme where the alien was like, "How did you get in here?" and the other person says, "The door was unlocked."
How did you get past security? His fortress is impenetrable.
Door was unlocked?
Son of a bitch!
I suppose it isn't totally in Padme's favor in this situation, as Palpatine did convince her to propose a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum, which paved the way for Palpatine to be voted in. But overall, Padme was a thorn in the Sith Lord's side. The first example I mentioned, prior to the invasion of Naboo, occurred during Padme's first year as the Queen of the planet. In her attempts to rekindle open relations between the planets in Naboo's sector of space, Padme hosted a summit where she invited the dignitaries of the neighboring planets. Previously, the government of Naboo had been isolationist, which worked in Palpatine's favor for his secret plan to exploit the planet through the Trade Federation. However, one of Padme's first big acts was to host this summit and end this isolationism. Her endeavors succeeded, and when Palpatine heard that Padme was succeeding as the Queen, he started stressing. He moved the timetable of his plans to be sooner, forcing him and the Trade Federation to begin their blockade of the planet before they were ready. Of course, then there's the actual invasion of Naboo, where Padme returned back to the planet and led her forces during the Battle of Naboo to reclaim their home. Palpatine realistically probably didn't need the Trade Federation anymore for the time being, now that he was on the path to becoming the Chancellor. But I feel like he wanted that situation to go on longer to create that sense of dissatisfaction with the Republic. Like, I think he wanted the sympathy for Naboo to garner enough traction so the Separatist faction could become bigger. Either way, Palpatine still got what he wanted, and he used that Separatist crisis to remain in power, but I don't think it happened exactly the way he wanted because of Padme. And once Padme was made the senator of Naboo after her term as queen was over, Palpatine attempted to manipulate her further and coerce her into avoiding certain actions in the Senate. This could be seen especially when Padme tried to find allies and factions to work with, and when she would offer to help on certain committees and pass certain bills. Palpatine would tell her not to in a friendly but firm way. It was as if Palpatine was trying to keep her docile in a place where he could watch her, so she didn't ruin or impact any more of his plans. Well, of course, that didn't stop her, because when tragedy struck the planet Bromlark, Padme advocated in the Senate to help the planet. However, the Trade Federation stepped in and vetoed the idea, and successfully convinced the Senate not to send aid for a planet-wide reconstruction effort, but then attempted to coerce the senator from Bromlark to enter into a private arrangement with the Trade Federation to help with the costs of the repairs. In essence, the Trade Federation wanted Bromlark to make a deal with the devil, and managed to push everyone else away, and we know Palpatine was in cahoots with the Trade Federation, and therefore makes sense why he wanted to push Padme away from the situation. Again, Padme was undeterred, and actually spent 3 days straight crafting a bill with fellow Senator Rush Clovis called the Mid-Rim Cooperation Motion, which involved a series of transactions for resources that benefited all the planets involved. Her proposal was so successful that the other senators were willing to then assist Bromlark finally, and shut the Trade Federation out. Once again, Padme stopped the Trade Federation and hindered Palpatine's plans, or at least it can be assumed that this was part of Palpatine's plans. It's not like directly confirmed, but again, Palpatine was working with the Trade Federation. So yeah, Padme must have really angered Palpatine over the years, and it was worsened for him when she was one of the main sources of light in Anakin Skywalker's life, that served as an obstacle to Palpatine in turning Anakin to the dark side. Palpatine figured out how to work around that though, as he does, sadly. He's manipulative like that. Still though, it humors me to think that Padme was Palpatine's biggest op and she didn't even know it. Well, she might have had an idea during the Clone Wars. Anyway, that's it for this video. Just wanted to share my observations. Everything I mentioned can be read about in the books Queen's Peril and Queen's Shadow, both written by E.K. Johnston. Read them if you haven't. Thanks for watching.